Her next sentence started with when I was 14, and she started sharing her first suicide attempt. What was going on that day in her world?
Welcome to Happy to Offend You. Life guarantees that somebody's going to be offended by anything that you do. In fact, somebody right now is offended by life itself, but they don't have to be. This show guarantees that someone is going to be liberated from being offended by somebody else's offensive behavior. What? Yes, we said it. This show sets out to prove not only how to be liberated from being offended, and also how to be happy to offend. So if you're already offended, welcome to the show. And here's your host of the very offensive, Michelle Nedelec. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I am super glad that you're here with us today because I am here with the most amazing Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're very welcome. I love this show and working with you at any way, shape, or form. I am very happy to do.
Awesome. So give us a little bit of background of who you are and what you do for business.
All right. I'm a Gemini. I'm a triple Gemini, according to what I've been told. Basically, this means I'd have more than 2 times the amount of energy as most people, which is why I have 2 missions in the world. The mission I'm most known for is from my TEDx talk, How to End Teen Suicide. And so that's the mission, to end teen suicide. That's a nonprofit. And I just stepped down as the director. So my oldest daughter, Katie, is stepping up. And I am so happy. You have no idea. Because people kept saying, oh, you work with kids, you work with teens. And I'm like, no, I follow the directions on a bottle of aspirin. You know, it says take 2 and keep away from children. I raised 3 kids, mostly as a single mom, and then I ran a daycare in order to keep a roof over their heads. I don't play with children at this age of my life. It is my turn to be a child. So that's what I do. So that's mission number 1. My second mission is to end the inequality between the value that experienced coaches and healers bring into the world, the impact they have, and the compensation they receive. So that is my mission. It's to end that inequality. And so you'll find me talking on those 2 topics, whether I'm helping someone learn to sell in 7 minutes or less, or whether I'm helping them have the talk that saves lives. Either way, I'm on the same mission. Let's make the world a better place.
Nice. I love it. So let's back up the bus a bit. And how did you get into teen suicide prevention as a thing?
Reluctantly, kicking and screaming, hell no, and how fast can I hide? It all happened on August the 3rd, 2019. And my middle daughter, Stephanie, gave a 7-minute message that matters, because that's what I taught. She had been a coach at some of my events. She was a participant at this one. She was the first speaker of the day. And she started her talk with the startling statistic. Now, hey, speaker hint, if you're going to give a 7-minute talk, a startling statistic is a great way to start. Her startling statistic was 3,000 a day. That's the number of teens in America that attempt to take their own lives. In the back of the room, I was stunned twice. First, because I had no idea the number was that high. And second, because I had no idea suicide was her topic. Her next sentence started with when I was 14, and she started sharing her first suicide attempt. What was going on that day in her world? Now, I'd lived through them, and it was 23 years since then. I mean, she was now 37, but we hadn't really talked about them. You know, as long as she was getting professional help, I figured we didn't need to. The reality is I sold myself on the idea that we didn't need to, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to know what could cause my child so much emotional pain that she would think dying was better than living. So I didn't ask. And that silence had lasted 23 years. And so The blood had drained from my face, I'm pretty sure, because I could feel myself go pale. And as she continued unpacking her story, now she put some humor in it. I mean, she talked about how we had the other talks. We never really talked about suicide, but we talked about those other things that, you talk about, right? Like sex. And we had to talk about drugs and we had to talk about alcohol. And she shared that then she went to college on a dry campus, which means that the kegs were hidden in the showers of the girls' dorm. So brilliant 7-minute talk. And then she shared that she still struggled with suicidal thoughts. And in the back of the room, I went from pale to bone cold as I realized the struggles that she had had to face alone because I was afraid to break the silence. 30 years of stress management consulting is the only thing that kept me from crawling into a corner and just bawling my eyes out. She wrapped up her talk with a desire to share the skills that she'd learned on her suicide avoidant journey with teens before they need them. And it was that line, before they need them, that hung in my mind while everybody else gave her a standing ovation and ran up and hugged her and thanked her for being so brave and so vulnerable. And I was frozen in the back of the room, torn between pride for her bravery and guilt and shame for my cowardice. And what happened after that was amazing, because I realized that maybe she was right, and that the key to ending teen suicide was as simple and obvious as giving kids the skills, the emotional intelligence and resilient skills before they need them. Those were the words that launched the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, which is a nonprofit. And it launched the talk that saves lives and propelled me onto a TEDx stage on a topic that I had never thought I would talk about. And so there you go. That's the answer to your question. That's how I got into this mission.
Wow. 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 That is powerful and mind-boggling and heart-crushing all at the same time, which is awesome. So since you've done that, one, congratulations for not crawling out of that room, because I totally would have. I feel like
I
crawling
did
out of the room
try.
right now.
I tried multiple times. Like all we're going to do is publish, make it a great day. The choice is yours. We're going to publish this book to help teens break the silence. And we'll just go into local high schools and we'll do a buy one, give two. You buy one book, we'll give 2 to teens for free. And that's all we need to do. My living room looked like a book mailing center. And then COVID shut everything down.
And
There were no more talks in schools.
yeah.
There were no more gatherings where people could pick up a copy of the book. And the teen suicide rate went from 3,000 a day to August of 2020. The Center for Disease Control said that young adults in America, ages 14 to 24, 25% were struggling with suicidal thoughts. 1 out of 4.
Brutal.
And that was just in the first few months of COVID. We've had 2 more years since then. The numbers have not gotten any better. Did not stop me from trying to hide. Okay.
Right. Well, and you say that the solution is simple, but every parent knows it's not so simple. You ask your kid how they're doing, they're like, good, fine, okay, yeah. Right.
Okay, I got a clue for all parents. Are you ready?
Don't ask
if
your
a
kids how they're
teenager
doing.
says they're fine, that's code. You want to know what fine is code for?
Yes.
Frenzied, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Fine, F-I-N-E. Frenzied, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Now that you know the truth about how your kids are doing, stop asking. It's intrusive. You miss the opportunity to be included in their lives. They will either tell you or they will lie. Why? Because if they're struggling, they're good at masking. And if they're not struggling, they're going to be offended. Because at that age, they choose to be offended by their parents at most days. Yeah. So there's a better way to do it.
I'll tell.
All right, I'll tell you what. You willing to be really brave? Because we could offend a lot of people here.
Okay.
All right. Instead of talking about the talk that saves lives, let's demo it. Let's role play it. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, parents, here you go. This is how you get a kid, a teen, to buy into this talk so that when you're not saying, hey, let's have the talk about something, because you know that's going to make their eyes roll back in their heads. Yeah. Instead, do this. Here we go. Hey, Michelle, I'm part of the mission to end teen suicide. They gave me a guide. I have to practice. Do you have a few minutes to help me practice my guide today?
I have to.
Well, you don't have to, but it's only 4 questions. What do you think?
Okay. How long is this
All
going
right.
to
Well,
take?
here's the deal. For the first 3 questions, you can only answer yes or no.
Done.
And then on the 4th question, you can tell me whatever you want. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So this works no matter what age, guys. So just be yourself.
Even 53?
At any age. You were
Awesome.
a teenager once and it doesn't matter, right?
I still act like one. It's all good. Yep.
There we go. All right. Thank you for helping me practice my guide. Question 1.
Mhm.
Michelle, have you heard about the rise in teen suicides?
Yes.
Thank you. Question 2. Michelle, do you have a story? Do you have a friend who's tried or died?
Yes.
Thank you. Question 3. Have you ever thought of leaving that way?
Yes.
Thank you. Question 4. Hey, Michelle, why stay? What are your reasons for staying?
Great question. Because I think there's at least one person on the planet that my promise to myself was I need to talk to every person on the planet first before I can decide to go on my own. And until I've talked to every person on the planet, I don't have all the facts.
What else? What else? Why stay?
Because I knew there were good days.
Speaking of good days, what's so good about your life that you want more of it?
Awesome. Well, I love adventures. I love traveling. I love being with my dog. I love being with my cat. I love doing podcasts now, which 30 years later, 40 years later, I guess, 40. Yeah, all sorts of things.
Anyone watching or listening will absolutely notice that when you tapped in to your reasons for staying, your whole demeanor changed. So what happened in your brain is amazing. So here's the neuroscience. Be prepared to geek out. Here we go. I'll keep it short and simple.
What happened?
Reasons for staying is now a new neural pathway in your brain. So your reticular activating system, that filters out things that are irrelevant and only allows in things that matter to you in the moment. Mm-hmm. If you end up having a natural, normal, Freud says, part of your worst case scenario decision-making system thought of leaving, now that thought is going to bump up against a new setting in your reticular activating system called reasons for staying. And the thought doesn't get hooked. It doesn't stay around. So what we just did was sort of brain surgery without a scalpel, because we activated and fired all of your neural pathways around suicide, around sadness, around your grief from your friends, around the angst of your own experience and thinking. And then we stole all of that electricity and redirected it into a new neural network labeled reasons for staying. And by the way, I'm going to offend a few people. Everybody listening just had the same brain surgery without a scalpel. Because of something called mirror neurons. Every time you came up with a reason for staying, the other people listening, their brains were like, oh, do I have that reason? Oh, I have a different reason. I wonder if she's going to say this reason. And they're building out the same file folder in their brain. So you just suicide-proofed your entire audience.
Yay! Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, don't tell Ted, but I actually snuck this brain surgery without a scalpel into my TEDx talk.
Nice.
And I held my breath for like 5 months before they approved it. From the time I delivered it until Ted actually approved it and it went up.
Nice.
Longest few months of my life. Yeah. But yeah, they did. And then after 3 weeks, it had over 10,000 views and Ted picked it up. So it's on TED.com as well.
Love it. So yes, look up Jackie Simmons on TEDx and you'll find TED as well. Nice.
Well, it's easier. They can just go to JackieTEDx.com.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. TEDx doesn't mind if I use their brand as long as it directs back to their site.
Yep.
Otherwise, it would be brand hijacking, and that's against the rules. So no, I only direct it to their site. So just JackieTEDx.com.
Love it.
Short and sweet.
Love it. So let's kind of talk about why people get offended by talking about suicide, for starters. Because I know a lot of people, oh, you can't talk about that. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can't talk about that. Oh, my goodness. All right. So here's what happens. I don't believe in coincidences. And yesterday, a customer service agent who was helping me get a plumbing issue fixed the day before a big holiday, when I, at the end, said, customer service people are great. They always say, is there anything else I can help you with? By the way, if you are in any service profession, if you have a passion, if you have a mission in the world, those words are golden for you. Here's how to respond. Thank you for asking. Yes, I actually have a special request. I'm part of, in my case, the mission to end teen suicide. And yesterday, she went, you're going to pull my heartstrings. Hang on, I need to get away from my kid. I'm working at home today. Give me a second. And she went to another part of her house. And before I could tell her about the Make It a Great Day Volume 2 that just published, or the Song That Saves Lives that we just launched, she started telling me her story. Here's what happens with stigma. When she was 2 years old, she lost her father to suicide. She did not know until she was 16, because it took that long for her mother to tell her the cause of death. Needless to say, at 16, she was offended. Because at 16, we're offended by everything, but especially by deception. Because we're not allowed to lie.
Right.
So at that age, we can, whoa, we're not allowed to lie. Where do you get off lying? We get offended on all levels. And she was not just offended, she was devastated.
Yeah.
And their family didn't talk about it. From the age of 16 until she was in her high 40s, they didn't talk about it. And in 1999, her brother took his own life. And they found out there were a lot of things that he hadn't talked about that he'd been struggling with, that if they had known, they could have supported him. But because things were not talked about in their family, he got the opposite of support. Because nobody knew. After he died, they found a card for Alcoholics Anonymous for a recovery system. No matter what you believe about AA or 12 steps, the bottom line is he was attempting to get help. And their family coping mechanism was to pour alcohol down everybody's throat if somebody was upset. that wouldn't have happened if he had felt free to talk about it, to talk about his struggles. But what we know is whether it's addiction or depression or suicidal ideology, meaning a suicidal thought that's stuck in your head, what I call a negative echo chamber, no matter what it is, the silence is not golden, it's deadly. And that's what she had lived. And she shared all of this with me yesterday in a very brief phone call, because I had dared to break the silence and to say I'm part of the mission to end teen suicide.
Nice.
And while he wasn't a teen, her brother wasn't a teen, her father wasn't a teen, it didn't matter. What mattered is that we are breaking the silence. Whatever mission most of your listeners have in the world, I will guarantee you they are keeping silent on it in some quadrant of their life, whether it's their family or their friends or their peers or their clients. In one of those four quadrants, they're not talking about it. No matter what it is that they're passionate about, no matter what their real purpose is in the world, if they've identified it, somewhere there's silence. And guys, I don't care what it is. If it's your passion and your purpose, silence isn't golden. Silence is deadly. Not just in suicidal ways, but also in the death of your dreams. If nobody knows what you're passionate about, they cannot support you. They can't buy in because you're not giving them an opportunity. We call that keeping it a secret. What does it do? Keep you in your comfort zone. What do I know? Everything you want is where? Outside. Yeah, outside your comfort zone. How do we know, Michelle?
Because we don't have it yet. And if we had it, it'd be inside our comfort zone.
Yeah. These things seem really obvious when we shine a bright light on them, and yet I lived inside my comfort zone until I came up with a really good definition of my comfort zone.
What's that?
My comfort zone is that place where life is just good enough that I'm not hungry. And life is just bad enough that I'm not happy. And that's where I lived most of my life, especially when I was avoiding the topics that were uncomfortable. Why? Because a comfort zone by definition is what? Where you're comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Getting out of that was the greatest gift I have given to myself. It was the biggest challenge I have ever come across. And it was the shortest time period. It took no time at all to get outside of my comfort zone. All it took was the pain of not being happy to outweigh the good enough of not being hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in a 7-minute moment.
That is awesome. So talk to me about why you think people are offended by, let's go with emotions and crying. Being able to ask your family, like, hey, did you guys know that suicide's up? Like, have you ever thought of that? And then all of a sudden the tears flow. It's like, why does that offend other people?
We're scared. All right, I'm going to own it. Okay. I'm a survivor of 2 bouts of clinical depression. This is the story I didn't share on stage. I fought my way out of my first one with the help of Western medicine, counseling, therapy, and medication. I fought my way out of the second one with the same support system, counseling, therapy, and medication. They could get me stable and they could not cure me. And I was so afraid of falling back into that abyss, the black pit that just opens up on a sidewalk when I'm not expecting it. I was so afraid of that I would not talk to my family if they were feeling down. And I wouldn't take on a client who was struggling with depression. I'm a stress management consultant at that point in time. Not working with people who are struggling with depression was, how can we say, not so good for my business? This was not a great business plan. And so now I've got the fear of depression and the fear of bankruptcy. Yeah. So why are we afraid of talking about it? Because we're afraid that, or I was afraid that if people really got to know me, if people knew I had a suicidal child, they would judge me and not want to work with me. If people knew that I struggled with my own mental health, they would not trust me to be able to help them. It took the TEDx experience and my wonderful angel of a coach who swept in the last 3 weeks before my stage. He'd hosted 5 TEDx events of his own, and he was no longer actively an organizer, but he agreed to coach me if my current organizer agreed, because ripping apart your script 3 weeks before stage is not exactly normal in that arena. Now, he had coached TEDx speakers, and they had over 1 million views on their talks. He had never given a TEDx talk and never had a talk that had that many views. He didn't have to do it to be able to coach people to do it.
Right.
His events had 2,500 people at his TEDx talks in Vancouver, Washington, and British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And his mentor, who helped him with his events to get that to 25 people, had never himself hosted an event with 2,500 attendees. So here's this chain of people who could help other people do something that they themselves had never done. And this busted the myth for me that I couldn't help somebody else with their own mental intelligence and resilience until I had mine under control. Such bullshit. If you're waiting until you're perfect before you're profitable, you're going to be broke. That's what I learned. So quit looking for you to be perfect. If you've got somebody in your face, and I had somebody in my face who said, Jackie, what you certify coaches to do permanently erase emotional trauma without them ever needing to talk about it so they don't get re-triggered or re-traumatized. For me to work with you, you would have to exhibit no evidence of trauma in your own life. And I went, let me know how that works for you. This idea that you have to be perfect before you can be engaging with other people, before you can be on purpose, before you can make a difference in the world. I did not say that to his face, but I knew in that moment that he was not my tribe. This was not my vibe. If you think I have to be perfect before I can help you, go find somebody who's perfect to help you. Let me know when you do. And pay them a lot.
Yeah, because they're worth it.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm going to be here helping the ones who know that they're making a difference in the world without being perfect already. And they just want to make a bigger difference. That's who I serve.
Love that. And in your experience, does it help to, I was going to say become perfect, but I absolutely don't want to encourage anybody to even aim for that. Just in the trials and tribulations that of this little journey on the blue planet that we call life, does it help one's sense of self, let's put it that way, to understand that there's times that you're going to offend people and to actually be happy to offend them?
No. I think it helps them to understand that other people, here we go. I got a poem for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What other people say and do says a lot about them and nothing about you. If someone chooses to be offended by what you do, accept that it's their choice to be offended, and you get to decide if what you did needs to be amended and you need to apologize for any inconvenience you have caused them. This is not the same thing as saying, I'm sorry. I don't buy this one. The I'm sorries can go to shouldville where they belong, because that's really where they belong. And leaving Shouldville, as you know, is my thing. What if you simply said, what I said apparently caused you some discomfort, and I apologize for that. And you put a period there. Do not say that was not my intention. That's crap. Because they don't care what your intention was. They care about their emotions. So just care that they're having an emotional experience and don't be defensive, which is, it wasn't my intention. That's so defensive. Just say, you're having a struggle with something I said. I apologize for the struggle. And then shut up and listen. If more people just shut up and listen. Oh, by the way, that's the first word in the anthem to end suicide. The song that saves lives that was written for us at the Teen Suicide Prevention Society starts with the word listen. It's amazing. Oh my God. Has anybody nominated you to sing it yet?
Not yet.
I probably
We'll
will.
have to put out some nominations on this one. How do people sign up to nominate people to sing?
SingOurSong.com. They can nominate their favorite singer, their favorite artist, their favorite family member, anyone who could breathe life into these lyrics. Nominate them. We're going to badge them in social media. We're going to make them famous for having been nominated to sing our song. We just last night got permission to release the title and to be able to share the lyrics and the instrumental with the people who are nominated. So everybody, heads up, you're going to hear it here first. The title of the song is Before You Decide. Yeah.
I love that. That is awesome. Awesome. So give us that link again. And of course, we'll have it in the show notes, peeps.
Yeah. SingOurSong.com.
Love it. And Jackie, you've been absolutely amazing. If people want to continue their journey with you, how do they do that?
Oh my goodness. Let me count the ways. JackieSimmons.com. Teaspoons. Spell it out. Teaspoons. Teaspoons.org. SingOurSong.com. The reality is that you can find me on most social media platforms, and you can find this organization. As I said, I stepped down. So Katie, you'll find her. She's a lot on Facebook. And that's how we're changing the world. We help people change the world, either with suicide prevention or in their own businesses, one talk at a time.
Love it. Jackie, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it immensely. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love helping you find happiness and offending others. Have a good one.